Hi everybody, it's Julie. Welcome to Hello Monday. Today I'm going to be playing around with a technique that I had first seen done by Dawn of W+9, and I had seen it so long ago, but I never got around to trying it. So I was like, you know what, I'm doing this today because I've always wanted to. So I'm going to take the Up the Happy stamp set and the coordinating dies here. And I'm also going to be working with some masking paper. This is by Inkadinkadoo, and it comes in sheets. There's white on the one side, and then there's a liner paper that's in blue on the opposite. You can stamp on it, you can die cut it and punch it. It's very thin and it's a removable adhesive. And I've already die cut a whole bunch of butterfly shapes using the Up the Happy coordinating die set. So now that I've got all these butterflies pre-die cut, I'm actually going to plan my layout on a piece of Nina Solar White. And once I'm sure I've got them exactly where I want them and spaced out to get that, random effect, even though it's not totally random, I'm kind of planning it. I'm going to remove the liners and get those anchored in place and then flip it over to the back side so I can burnish really nicely on the back and make sure all the little antenna and everything are nicely anchored to the paper surface. And then don't laugh at me, but in order for me to do the next step, I have to wear gloves. That's just the way I am. So I'm going to take some Spun Sugar Distress ink and an ink blending tool, and I'm trying to recreate that cool airbrush effect that Dawn had gotten with the compressor and the Copic markers, but I don't have a compressor, so I'm trying to fake it here. And I found that if I took a really pale color of Distress ink and my ink blending tool and just pounced lightly so that the edges of that round sponge don't show up, I could actually get pretty close to that look of airbrushing. So I'm just very gently pouncing with a very pale color, like Spun Sugar is a really light pink. And then once I was happy with that application, I thought, well, let's see what happens if I try to swirl the ink around a little bit and try to even things up just a little bit more. So I'm very gently kissing the surface of the paper with my ink blending tool. It may look like I'm, really swirling that around kind of hard, but I'm actually just barely skimming the surface of the paper and trying to be very careful that I don't catch the edges of my mask and lift those up while I'm doing it. So then I decided I wanted to add some splatters, and I tried working with the Distress paint in Picket Fence, but my bottle was really old, and so I just thought, you know what, let's try this again. Let's grab some Distress stain and see if I can get the white splatters that I want. So I added a little bit more water with my Aquash paintbrush when I loaded it to my acrylic block to kind of make it just a little bit more liquidy. Then I got my splatters and I faked a couple of those blobs there by just painting directly onto the card front. Nobody will ever know that those were deliberately painted blobs, right? And then I decided I wanted some gold, so I took my Kuretake Ganzai Tambi Starry colors, and I took that really pretty bright gold that's towards the middle of the collection, and really got that activated with some water from my Pentel Aquash, loaded it onto my acrylic block and started spattering, and then I realized, it's just a little bit too thick. So I came back and I added some more water to dilute it just a little bit more, make it a little bit runnier. And then once I did that, I was able to get much finer spatters. And I could also do like a little bit of deliberate blobs. I don't think I really did too much of that with the gold. I did it more with the white Distress stain, but you could go in there if you're not happy with your random blobs, you could deliberately paint them. And like I said, nobody will ever know that you did that. So that was looking pretty good. I'm going to heat set that with my embossing gun, and then once that's nicely dry, I can move on to the rest. And here is where the magic is going to start happening. When you start pulling away these masks, you see where the masking paper has blocked off that image of the butterfly, and all that color and spatter is all going everywhere else, so it protected those areas. So I'm just going to peel all of those off very carefully. In some cases I had to use my tweezers to get under the edges there, and then I'm going to fill in those spaces with the butterfly stamp from Up the Happy, and I'm also going to ink up with the Tsukineko Golden Delicata, Golden Glitz ink. This is just a gorgeous shade of gold ink, and you don't even have to emboss it. I just like to use it naked on my projects because it's just so shimmery and pretty. So I'm just stamping directly over those open spaces, and you can try to be dead on accurate if you want to, but I think it looks fine. You don't have to worry too much about it, and just, as long as you're aiming pretty close to it, it's going to look cool. And once I got done with that, I decided I wanted to take a sentiment, "Don't forget to have a little fun today," and ink that as well with the Golden Delicata. And once I have that inked up nicely, I'm going to stamp onto another piece of cut to size Neenah Solar White. And this is actually going to get mounted onto my card front. But I thought it would be fun to add just a little bit more accent by using this piece of vellum. This is by Pink Fresh Studio, and I love that really cool hand-drawn herringbone pattern on there. So I'm going to trim down this panel and mount it to a base card and just let the white edges on each side show up. Sometimes I trim the whole thing down, you know, a quarter of an inch all the way around, but I thought this would look kind of cool. Just have those strips going down the sides there. So I'll go ahead and put some tape runner on the back of that, get it mounted in place. And then I'm also going to put some tape runner on the back of my vellum towards the middle where I know it's not going to be visible. You could use whatever adhesive you want as long as it's not going to show, because this is going to get mounted on the top. I've got some foam tape on the back side of that little sentiment there, and I just peeled off the liner papers, and then I'll just go ahead and anchor that down. And I just removed the liner paper from the middle of that sentiment to make sure that when I was gluing it down, I had some fudge room in case I didn't get it where I wanted it. And then I can come around the perimeter with my tweezers and get in there where it's really tight and remove the rest of those liner papers from the foam tape. And then to embellish the card and finish it off, I decided to take some of those Pretty Pink Posh sparkling sequins in the 4mm and 6mm sizes, and I'm just going to kind of randomly spread those where I think I want them, and then I'm just going to put a little puddle of that multi-medium in a matte finish on a post-it note and swipe those sequins right through it with my tweezers and get them mounted in place. And that pretty much finishes off the card. And I thought it turned out super fun. I really enjoyed being able to recreate that airbrush effect with the Distress inks and the blending tool, and I thought it turned out super cool. Can't wait to try it again in another color. So I hope you enjoyed this. There are more details and still shots at the Classroom blog, and all the supplies are available at ellenhutson.com. Thanks for watching.